Hi everyone, this is your introduction to Egyptian iconography. We just finished our unit on the Mesopotamians and we saw how those people, the Akkadians, the Assyrians, the Persians, they were very interested in their kings being victorious in battle and in their kings showing the ability to govern well. Now the Egyptians were equally interested in their kings, but they're much more interested in the divinity of their kings and assuring that those kings had a good afterlife. Now we know about the Egyptian kingdoms. We talk about the chronology in terms of Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom. And this is based, though, on an understanding of the Egyptian dynasties, at least 30 dynasties, that we know about simply because of the writings of one historian, a man, a scribe, who was living in Egypt under Greek rule, and so he wrote in Greek. His name was Manetho, and he wrote something called the Egyptiaca. It's from this work that we have a solid understanding of the names of the various kings and a few queens, and how they ruled over that 2,000-year period. And it also shows us how very homogeneous Egyptian culture was. And this is also backed up by material evidence and artwork as to how very much things stayed the same from one century to the next in Egyptian thought, religion, and art. Now you know the geography of Egypt. This is a river valley culture surrounding the Nile River that flows from the south to the north and dumps into the Mediterranean Sea. Now, the geography shown here with Upper and Lower Egypt circled, this is as we talk about ancient Egypt. This is as they talked about their own territory. Upper Egypt referring to up the Nile, upstream, and Lower Egypt referring to the delta itself. So, don't be confused. Lower Egypt is actually northern Egypt. Now, before the kings, we understand that there were groupings of settlements. They were transitory, beginning in the 8th millennium. And then gradually people began to work with the waters, with the inundation season of the Nile, the flooding of the Nile, and an agrarian village system grew. Ultimately, these communities banded together in attempts to work with the river and the land even more on a larger scale. And this gradually compounded into larger and larger social units, necessitating a stronger governing body. In steps the idea of the king. Well, not just the king, but a divine king is attested to in the pre-dynastic period in the middle of the 4th millennium. Such that by the time we hit the early dynastic period, in the dates shown here, we have the names of kings. King Menes, for instance. The city in green, Hierakonpolis, has a very nice archaeological stratigraphy showing us the development of early Egypt. Now, the Egyptians didn't think of their time in 4 seasons, but in 3, all surrounding this inundation season. So here are the seasons. I've listed them for you: the Achet, the Pere, and the Shemu, the inundation, the sowing season, and the harvesting season. So the flooding would happen, and then when the waters would recede, the banks of the Nile were covered with this beautiful, black, fertile soil that had been brought from Upper Egypt. And so there was planting and then ultimately harvesting. So it was the river and its black soil that brought life every year. And this is one thing you see in an ideology of the ancient Egyptians, that the river banks were associated with the color black, with life, and with a sense of order. Whereas on either side of those banks was the desert, and that is considered associated with the color red and with death and chaos. So in Egyptian ideology, it was important to stay within an ordered sense of life, within that cyclic sense of the seasons, because that order brought life and ultimately serenity and ultimately a safe passage into the afterlife, what the Egyptians called Duat, D-U-A-T. Now this is an image of Horus in a line drawing that you see on the right. This is the Egyptian god of the earth. And he's seated in what we call a composite pose. He's seated on this square, and you see his legs in profile. And then his torso, well, those shoulders look like they are facing us, and then his head is in profile as well. This is a composite pose. It's also called a twisted pose, such that the most recognizable angle of the body or of the figure is shown. Horus here is wearing a certain crown. We understand this certain crown as showing a ruling power over both Upper and Lower Egypt. He's wearing what we call the double crown. So if you look at the far left, you can see that the white crown looks like this club shape. It is associated with Upper Egypt, Southern Egypt. And the red crown, it has this beautiful volute, this great spiral in it, is associated with the Delta area. For an Egyptian king to rule well, to rule with an ordered sense, and to secure his serenity and therefore his safe passage to the afterlife, he needed, the most important thing to do was to rule a unified Egypt, both Upper and Lower Egypt together. This was the bar set for all Egyptian kings. Now in the lower tier here, you can see other images. Perhaps you've seen the Ankh before, an image associated with everlasting life. The scarab beetle associated with rebirth. Here is the image of the god Horus, but in a complete falcon presence. You can see in the drawing, he only has a falcon head on a male body. And then there are images just of Horus's right and left eye that have meaning. His right eye, the Wedjat of Horus, is associated with the sun. So if you look at a great stone relief sculpture here on the side of a temple, on the right you see Horus as god of the earth. You can see he has a very elaborate crown on. There are umpteen different kinds of crowns, really, in the Egyptian world. And there is a king, a pharaoh, that's approaching him to give him an offering. The pharaoh is considered the incarnation of Horus on earth. It gives his role legitimacy. Now, also I want you to note in this image that this is not just a raised relief sculpture. It's actually a sunken relief sculpture. You can see the baseline, the ground line of the wall, has been carved into. A great line has been made on the outline of the figure here. And then within that outline, an image has been carved in relief. Now this is called sunken relief, and it has the effect of creating a very strong light-dark contrast. You could see it effectively from a great distance. Now, the Egyptian pantheon has great creation myths, great cosmogonies. This is one of them, that Atum was the first god, and from Atum come the spirits of wetness and dryness, and then in turn the god of the earth, Jeb, and a female god of the sky, Nut. And from these two come 4 children, 2 men, 2 women, Osiris, Seth, Isis, and Nephthys. Here's an image with more of these gods and goddesses. There's Nut in the sky, and her mate Jeb stretched out on the earth, as the earth, and then Father Shu, the dryness, in the middle. Now, I'd like you to go to the bigmyth.com site. Look in the upper left-hand corner. You'll see the word myths, and select the Egyptian creation myth. And as you're watching it, note what it says about Ma'at. I want you to understand what Ma'at means in the Egyptian world. So now you're done with this first video. So go watch that Egyptian myth.